Hospital Porters, Pride and Dignity, Stop the New World Order. Welcome to Hapanwo TV and welcome to this Shill Squad 3 Tribunal. Now, this is the third video in this series, if you can call it a series. I don't know if that's the right word, but it's called, in these other two videos I made called the Shill Squad, I tackled a number of issues, and I didn't think I'd need to do any more, and indeed I haven't for many years, because obviously it's been several years ago since the last Shill Squad video. But an issue has come to light which has made me realise another instalment in this particular series is needed, or at least a postscript perhaps. Now, this is all about infighting. Now, I've done, oh my goodness, so many videos about this and other productions, radio shows, articles, etc., that I don't know if I need to elaborate any further. There's links in the description box that you can actually look at, and you can see for yourself the background to this whole issue. But basically it's all about this internecine hostility, this infighting within the UFO paranormal conspiracy theory movement, the truth movement if you want to call it that, for want of a better word. And as I said in the background links, this has steadily got worse over the last few years, to the point where it is, in a sense, it's taking over. I use words like troll crisis. It's taking over the entire movement, and it's becoming the centerpiece of everything we do. In other words, the most important activity now for the truth movement is dealing with other members of the truth movement in a hostile manner. Now, as I said in my previous videos, this concerns a number of individuals who are both the perpetrators and the receivers of this kind of treatment, and indeed I am one of the receivers from several different angles, more than two angles actually. It just seems like every time I look, another front has broken out in this war and I'm being attacked for another reason. Other people have suffered the same situation, other people have experienced the same thing, and it's everywhere. It's even, I mean, someone posted an article on one of my videos just a couple of months ago. They deleted it soon afterwards, but this person was basically denouncing me and wanting nothing more to do with me. And this is all to do with the Bigfoot issue. Do you remember my Bigfoot in Britain video? It's all related to that. It's actually become to the point where even the Bigfoot community, I mean, I'd say even, I know that in America this has happened before, but the Bigfoot research community is now has its own troll crisis. It has its own problem with infighting, to the point where it's just stopping. People are having to down tools on their normal work to deal with this, rather than get on with what the truth movement is supposed to be for. And that's an extremely dangerous situation, because of course what is the mission of the truth movement? What's it there for? And the answer is to stop the New World Order, to stop the Illuminati from building the New World Order. That's what it's there for. And if we're dealing with people, and I made this point in the previous videos, if we're having to deal with people that keep going around, yes, but this person's a shill, that person's a shill, I don't have any evidence they're a shill, but I'm going to say they're a shill in a very loud voice, and if you don't agree with me, then you're a shill too, or you're a shill enabler or a shill supporter, then the Illuminati are just going to laugh, aren't they? They're going to walk in, they're going to clear up, and what are we going to be doing? Are we literally going to be dragged off to the FEMA camps, and we'll be saying to the warders, we'll say, look, please, can you spare me a moment? I need to go to a computer and post some nasty comments about Larry Warren for a minute on Facebook. Is that literally where it's going to come to? And I cover that in more detail in the previous two videos, the Shill Squad 1 and Shill Squad 2, Ben Fellows, which I have links to in the description box, as always. Now, this idea actually came to me, this idea I'm going to talk about in this video. It was actually sometime last year. I was on the phone to someone. I was on the phone to somebody I know, actually. I used to be friends with, and this is a guy I used to respect. He's a targeted individual, and he's a TI himself, and he's also set up a support network for other people who are TIs, and he's got together with a group of other people who are also in this situation, and he's trying basically to do something about it. And when I met him, I thought, this is a guy who means business. This is a chap who really believes in what he's doing, and he wants to do good, and he's committed to doing good, and to trying to solve this problem, to address the issue of TIs and try to help himself and other TIs. And I thought to myself, yeah, this is a decent, honourable guy who believes in what he's doing. And how wrong I was. I got on the phone to this chap, and I'll call him Person 1. Now, he has had a falling out with someone I'll call Person 2. Person 2 is someone who's quite well known within our community, and is a good friend of mine, someone I've supported and worked with closely. And he spent the entire conversation, it was over a 20-minute phone call, I think, and I could hardly get a word in edgeways, telling me about how awful Person 2 is. And like I said, he was almost a monologue. He kept interrupting me. I couldn't reply, and it struck me, that Person 2 is not on the line to defend themselves. And then at the same time, I realised that someone else I'd not heard from for a while, and I went to her Facebook page and I saw that she'd unfriended me. And this is somebody who also doesn't like Person 2. For some reason. So I asked her, I said, what's going on? Why have you unfriended me? I saw a little tick, which meant she sent the message, so no reply. In the end, I did reply to her, and I said, look, I know you've unfriended me, I know why you've done it, and, well, I made some of the points I'm going to make in this video. But then the same thing happened with this TI, this Person 1, this TI I told you about. I suddenly looked at him on Facebook and realised, and suddenly I just noticed, I'd not heard from him in a while, I noticed he'd unfriended me. Now this is after he'd really gone to town on Person 2. He'd written all kinds of things about how horrible he was. He made a couple of videos slagging him off. He got together with some other people who were attacking Person 2, and they form a kind of an alliance. Yeah, so. And notice he'd unfriended me, and I didn't even ask this time. I just said, look, I know you've unfriended me. I know why you've done it. And I was really angry with him, actually. I said, look, I don't give a damn about your personal squabble with Person 2. I don't give a damn. I'm not interested. If you are going to take a personal issue with Person 2 and aggrandize it into this fantasy that he's somehow just a generally evil person, needs to be stopped, etc., etc. Well, all this time, this new world order is building itself up around our ears. Social credit systems, CCTV, smart meters, 5G, everything else is building itself up around us, ready to turn humans into farm animals for the slaughterhouse. And all you're doing is going, yes, but we have to stop Person 2. This is basically what he'd done. He dropped everything to focus on the destruction of Person 2. It's a recurring pattern. We've seen it with Larry Warren, which I've talked about on previous videos. I've done an entire video with Larry and Antino, who's also supporting him. It's like suddenly these personal spats, these playground fights with other people suddenly become the most important thing in the world. And nothing else matters except the destruction of your enemy. I'm going repeating points I've made earlier and repeating points I've made in the background videos, but it's incredible what happens. It's absolutely incredible. I don't understand why it is. Now, there's just no. I realised when I was on the phone to Person 1, there's no due process here. Absolutely no due process at all. This person has no recourse. Internet justice is medieval. We're going back to the days of hot iron bars and dunking stools. That's literally it. A person's guilt or innocence online is decided by a process of ordeal by hashtag. What you'll find is that's all it is, and you'll find that the two sides will split off when these truth mobs break out. They'll be following their chosen Ayatollah, and they'll just be continuously bombarding each other with abuse on the internet. It's always on the internet, isn't it? It's never in real life. Have you noticed that? Always, always on the internet. I mean, I challenged the Droid trolls to a meetup. I mean, maybe I'll put a link in the description box to that as well. I challenged Team Droid to a meetup, as you know if you've watched that video, and they never showed up. I gave them the opportunity of conflict in the real world for a change, not behind the impunity of a keyboard and monitor, and they declined. Of course, they're quite happy to. They never showed any reticence over abusing me online. They were quite happy to post insults at me till their heart's content. When it comes to real conflict, they just shrink like quivering violets. It says a lot, doesn't it? I think I should just remind viewers, because people have a short memory. If you've been following Miles Johnston and the Basis Project and the material he's been posting, I actually posted an article about this, just to remind people, because we passed the 1-year anniversary of when the massive abuse began against him from many different people were involved in this. It came from many different sides for many different reasons, but there was a massive attack against Miles Johnston of the Basis Project. And I did a video with him. I don't know if you remember, I actually did a live stream with him about this. And I said at the time, Miles, what you've been accused of is some of the most heinous crimes it's possible to commit. And he was. He was accused of, I won't even say it. Literally, if you wanted to smear someone, what's the worst thing you can think of? What's the worst possible crime you can accuse them of doing? Accuse them of being. And these accusations were levelled at Miles Johnston. And I said, you know, Miles, why are you still walking the street? Because if one word of what was said against Miles was true, he'd be in jail. And now it's 12 months later, he's still not in jail. And because people have a short memory and these things disappear over the horizon of their attention span, I thought it would be just a moment. I wanted to take a moment to remind you people watching of this, the fact that these accusations were made against him. They weren't true. The people who made the accusations knew that they weren't true, but just decided to make them anyway. They just thought, what the hell? I don't like this guy, I'm going to say these things. I can, people will believe me, so I'm going to say it. Exactly the same with Larry Warren. The exact same pattern repeats itself. So I'm just once, for those of you who unfriended me and abused me for standing by Miles, I just wanted to remind you of that, because I predicted, I put my position to the test. I said, okay then, if Miles is arrested and put in jail for what he's done, which he would be if it was true, undoubtedly he would be arrested and put in jail. Same with Larry Warren. And if that happens, then I'll apologise and I'll tell you, I'll say, look, I've been supporting an evil criminal and I'm really sorry, I shouldn't have done that. But you know what? He's still out there now, free. He's not even been questioned by the police. Same with Larry Warren. What's Larry Warren been accused of? As well as lying about his UFO experience, he's been accused of terrible acts of fraud, of trading counterfeit rock and roll memorabilia to the tune of hundreds of thousands of pounds. And do you know what his trolls said when he wasn't arrested and questioned? They said, the police just say they don't have the resources to pursue it. Oh, unrealistic city. Anyway, what are we going to do about this? That's the question. Then it struck me. It just suddenly came to me. It was just after I'd had this incident with person one, and I'd had this ridiculous phone call with him where he was ranting on about person two. Oh, I hate person two. He's horrible. He's horrible. Blah, 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 right? But it just suddenly these words came into my head, and I posted it on Facebook. I posted, thought experiment. Establish a tribunal to decide who is or is not a shill. Well, that's a good idea, isn't it? Sounds like... So, think about what that means. What that means. We're talking about a tribunal. This is a legal hearing, like a court case, like a trial. So you might think, well, what are we going to do? We can't exactly go to the state. We can't exactly go to the government and or the judiciary and the High Court and say, look, we need some court hearings, we need some lawyers, and we need some judges and things like that to decide who is or is not a shill, or everything else that these people are accused of within this internecine truth mobs, these infighting. And but of course that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about a completely private and independent system of law. And you may think, well, that's not possible, that doesn't exist. Yes, it does. There are many such organisations in the world today, including in this country. A lot of them are centred around religious networks. For example, the Beth Din. Now, the Beth Din are a system of courts for Orthodox Jewish communities. Now, the Jews have their own law. They have the Jewish law, and they have these courts which they set up within their community, where they have hearings, where they deal with disputes and conflicts between different people and different organisations, etc., etc. So do the Muslims. Now, this is a bit. They have the Qadi, the councils of the Sharia. Now, this is a bit infamous, I know, and I won't go into the controversy over the Sharia courts at the moment. All right, but I have mentioned that in other videos, and I know a lot of other people have dealt with this in videos. The point for this particular video, the point is that the Sharia courts are an independent judicial system. They're an independent judicial system that exists privately within a community of people. Now, these systems, the Beth Din and the Qadi, they have no legislative power at all. You can easily just stick two fingers up to them and says, well, I don't care what your verdict is, I'm not going to go along with it. But people don't do it. The reason people don't do it is because they respect those councils. They respect those courts. They completely voluntarily submit to the jurisdiction of those courts within their community. It may cross their mind at some point to disobey them, but very few of them do. Even though if they did, no one could really stop them. No one could force them. You know, no one could actually say, no one could call the police and things like that, or bring in the bailiffs. No, they couldn't do that. So again, they work through mutual cooperation, through the respect people have for these systems within their communities. And believe it or not, humans actually are naturally like that. We are a social species. And ever since ancient times, we have had, in prehistoric times, we have had legal systems. For instance, the Aborigines of Australia have this thing called the Chukaper, which is their law. Aboriginal Australian law is actually quite complex. And even though these are people who lived in just small groups, they didn't have a police force, they didn't have a government, they were essentially an anarchistic society, yet they had law. I mean, Stephen Molyneux says, that anarchism is no rulers, it doesn't mean no rules. It's a common misconception, and I think the state propagates it deliberately, that if it wasn't for, we need a state in order to enforce law. And if it wasn't for the state, everyone would just run around bashing each other over their heads and robbing each other and stealing their money and things like that. And killing each other for bus fare and stuff like that. It's only the fear of punishment through the state that stops people from behaving like that. That is the myth. I mean, for instance, the feminists will claim that you need a state run by women, because if it didn't, nothing else would stop men from being rapists and things like that. But it's a myth. It's a complete myth. Most people will cooperate with people on a social level, with or without government. We talked about this on the Mindset podcast with Trevor Murray, who's an anarchist. Literally, and I can't find a hole in his argument, to be honest. If the government disappeared tomorrow, what would we do? What would the world be like? Well, to begin with, it would be pretty much exactly the same. People would still go to work, buses would still run, rubbish would still be collected. Initially, nothing much would change. Over the long term, we may well be better off, and there'd be improvements. Just think of all that tax we wouldn't have to pay, things like that. But anyway, that's the point I'm making here is, and I'm rambling and going off topic again slightly. The point I'm making is that humans are naturally a cooperative species. We don't need a government of reptilian Illuminati to stop us from basically destroying ourselves through internecine violence. We don't need that. We will gravitate towards our own organisations. In the absence of those imposed from above by the state, humans will naturally create their own legal systems. So we have our own laws, and we've done this since prehistoric times, as I've said. So if the Jews can do it and the Muslims can do it, why don't the tinfoil hat wearing loonies? Why don't we create our own legal system? Now this is difficult. We can't make it a religious law, because I mean, the thing about the Muslims and the Jews is they believe their law is a gift from God. The Jewish law and the Sharia, that is the Orthodox law of Islam, they believe that it's literally divine law. We in the Truth Movement, we have a wide variety of different religious beliefs. So what do? Well, I think obviously because it can't be a religious based law, we'd have to just go with the point that we have to understand, and I believe this, that truth and justice itself is divine. That it is actually in line with the natural law of God or the universe, or whatever word you choose to use for the spiritual consciousness of the universe, that itself is divine. And in fact, those of you who understand karma and things like that will see that within your lives. That very often the universe actually provides its own justice for various things, and indeed I've noticed this in my own life, that the bad things I do come with their own punishments, and the good things I do come with their own rewards. I've definitely noticed that. Now, this is very interesting. And not only that, we could, our system, if we create a legal system of our own, it could be very, very useful as a model for the post-Illuminati world. Now, what I mean by that is that at some point we're going to go through a very, very difficult time in the near future, I would say. There's going to be a collapse of society as we know it, because the Illuminati rule is going to break down. It'll probably happen within my lifetime and the lifetimes of most people watching this. Now, when that happens, nobody, what I mean by that is the fall of Illuminati rule will not be as it's described by certain people on say the New Age, and certain people within the conspiracy sphere for that matter. We won't all wake up one day suddenly as priests of High Atlantis. That ain't going to happen. We may become like that eventually, but it's not going to happen straight away. We're going to go going through a very, very turbulent transitional period between Illuminati and between the Illuminati and post-Illuminati worlds. And during that period, believe me, no one is going to be caring. No one is going to want to get onto the internet and say lots of nasty things about Larry Warren, or Darren Perks, or Miles Johnston, or Kevin Annett, or Danielle LaVerite, or me, or any of these other people. It's just, the list goes on, doesn't it? Simon Parks. It's almost everyone with any kind of Google footprint within this particular field is called names and abused. But no one's going to want to do that. Do you know why? Because all we're going to care about is how we're going to get enough food and fresh water, and how we're going to protect ourselves in a situation where there will be a lot of fear around, and in those situations there will be violence. There'll be a breakdown of law and order, as the saying goes. Now, in order to restore ourselves from that, because these situations are unstable, and they naturally gravitate towards stability. As I said, humans, we go through periods of chaos and violence, as I've said, but we do naturally gravitate towards order. And so I believe that any kind of transitional period in that sense would be temporary. It wouldn't be forever. This is the myth of the state, that basically we become permanent. Our natural state is barbarism, and it's the state that prevents us. The natural humanity is barbarism. No, that's not true. We would eventually gravitate back towards organised society. When that happens, our model, which we create, could be very useful. It could serve as a template for whatever legal system we bring in that replaces that which we had under Illuminati rule. That is the judiciaries of the various states we have at the moment. Right. So how would this work? I mean, now the purpose of this video really is not to go into details about how a Shill tribunal could actually function. These details are things that would be very long, very complicated, and we would have to hash them out in various different ways once we make the decision to bring in a tribunal system for the truth movement. the purpose of this video is simply to present the idea and the principle of there being a Shill tribunal, and for us to embrace that and want to build it. How we build it and what shape it could take is something that we would have to work out together. But just as a sort of back at the envelope kind of speculation, it would work something like this. If you believe somebody if you decide, if someone in the truth movement has appeared who you don't like, who you've had some kind of personal argument with, now instead of going on to Twitter or to Facebook and engaging everyone in some kind of, and calling them lots of names and making lots of accusations without evidence and hoping that lots and lots of people believe you, which unfortunately at the moment a lot of people just do, they accept these accusations as gospel without checking, and starting a nice Facebook like button war. Instead of doing that, you would, if you had an idea, you decided you wanted to call this person a shill, you'd present your case to the tribunal. You'd approach the tribunal and you'd say, I believe, say person 2, I believe person 2 is a shill. And the tribunal would go, right, let's have a look at your evidence. And you present your evidence to the tribunal. At the same time, person 2 would be able to present a defence. If they could plead guilty if they wanted and confess, the way that what's his name, Richard Doty did. Remember the UFO guy? And ufology is one of the worst places for this sort of thing. Richard Doty, who confessed to being a government agent. You could confess the way Richard Doty did, or you could present a defence. You could say, no, I'm not a shill, and I'm not any of these other things that people have been accused of. I'm not an antiques fraudster. I haven't published any fake photos of John Lennon and myself. I haven't done any of these other things. The list goes on. And here's my defence, and you present a defence, and you'd be like a court. But there will be a judge or jury. I don't know how that. Again, it's not my position in this video to actually explain the details of how this would work. As I said, it's the principle I'm interested in. I'm proposing the principle of having a Shill tribunal. And that's how it would work. In the end, there'd be a verdict and there'd be a sentence, and the person would receive, maybe there'd be compensation or something like that, or maybe it will be handed over to the police if there were real criminal allegations here. We would hand it over to the police so it could be dealt with properly through criminal law. Or the case would just be dismissed. If there was no evidence, the case would be dismissed. And this dismissal would then become the verdict, which would be posted all over social media. And people could say, look, this has been submitted to the Shill Tribunal. We found there's nothing in it. And that's the end of the matter. Instead of these non-stop, endlessly regurgitated campaigns of hatred that we're seeing at the moment. Wouldn't it be better simply to have some kind of tribunal system which everyone agrees to, everyone respects, everyone adheres to the conditions that are worked out previously beforehand, and then submit their case to that for scrutiny? Because that's the sensible thing to do. That's the logical thing to do. As I said in my thing about Aristotle, where I think it was in my speech at Dreaming Sources, that is the way a rational society behaves. Indeed, such rationality is essential for the maintenance of a stable society. And I know a lot of you are going to say that I'm a dreamer, but I'm not the only one. No, but you're going to say that this is simply fantasy and it's never going to happen. People aren't going to agree to it. It's a pipe dream. I'm being unrealistic, and I'm actually the first to admit that. I will accept that, because, as I said at the beginning, this is a thought experiment. I'm very well aware that the trolls which we have in our community at the moment, if you go up to them and suggest this to them, they will literally throw it back in your face. I know that. I know it partly because a lot of these trolls understand that they're in the wrong, and they realise that if ever their case was subjected to proper scrutiny and proper investigation, it would fall apart. But also because they are generally irrational people, and they like the hashtag war. They like the fact that they can cause a sensation online, and people will come along either because they're too stupid to actually question, or because they just enjoy the drama. It's a big soap opera for them. Internet blood sports, as I've said on previous videos. So some people want that. They want that power. They want that ability. So I understand that what I'm suggesting here is a long shot. But I do think it is essential. And if we can't do it, well, what hope do we have? As I said in my video, is there any hope? I put a link in the description box to my video, Is There Any Hope? I'd like, for those of you who really do like this idea, please to let me know, because to be honest, there's times when I'm pretty close to despair at the moment, because I see the mission of the truth movement being swamped, being overwhelmed in this tidal wave of vitriol, which is purely personal. I mean, when you go into the background of these various troll campaigns from one person against another, you'll see that at some point in the past they had some kind of personal falling out. I mean, this is most obvious with Danielle Verite. It's actually documented, the people who attacked her. It actually was captured, the actual process from, if you trace the process back from she's a shill, she's an agent, she's with the Frankfurt School, etc., and you trace that back through the paper trail, or the Facebook trail, Facebook comments and things like that, you'll see it began with a purely personal dispute. And all these troll campaigns, without exception so far that I've looked at, are started exactly the same way. So the good thing about the Shill Tribunal is that this will become immediately obvious. So I'd like to know, for those of you who actually like this idea, please tell me, because I like to think there are people out there like me who are just fed up with all this and want to get the job done. They want to get on with it. I was talking to someone. I phoned this guy up, and he's a guy. He's not in the truth movement so much. He's actually a paranormal investigator. But I was on the phone to him, and I suddenly burst into tears, and I had to apologise to him because I felt a bit embarrassed. I felt a bit like a sissy. And I just explained to him, I felt emotional because I was talking to a man after I'd spent the whole day dealing with the trolls, and I was suddenly talking to a man who just wants to get the job done. He's a professional who just wants to do what it is we're supposed to do, and that's all I want. And if you want the same thing, please do put a comment in it saying so, because the more people I feel are on my side in this, the more hope I have that we can overcome this New World Order, we can end Illuminati rule, and we can begin this process towards the post-Illuminati world, a free world. I've described it in my books, the Roswell Trilogy, and I want to see it happen in real life. By the way, buy the Roswell Trilogy if you want to see a fictional account of how that happens. So please do keep in touch and give me your ideas about, and then perhaps we can start going into more details of designing how this legal system would work. What exactly is a Shill Tribunal? What would it be like? Would it be like a normal court? Would it be like a religious court? Would it be like a common law court? What would it be like? Let me know. Let me know what you think. And maybe we can present a working model at some point to the community, in which we've worked out some of the details at least, as a proposal, as a template, as I said, for something that could perhaps become more solid and more active. Because honestly, if we can do this, if we can actually achieve this, we can actually get people round the table into this kind of situation when we have our own judiciary which we can respect for situations that we've seen with the trolls. The sooner we can do this, the more chance we have of creating a better world for everyone. So thank you, all of you, for watching Herpanwo TV, friends and enemies alike, because I know you all watch. Have a lovely day, all of you, and here's to freedom. Hospital Porters, pride and dignity. Stop the New World Order.